Welcome back to Live with AI Virtual CES 2022, a webcast series featuring exclusive interviews with industry experts and thought leaders on the topics of ADAS and autonomy, along with virtual demos of AI's CES Innovation Award-winning Foresight Lidar, a solid-state and software-centric solution that adapts and optimizes its scan patterns in real time. Now, this webcast series is airing across all of AI's social media platforms. And that includes Facebook, that includes Twitter, also LinkedIn and YouTube as well. Now, everything from yesterday is archived there as well. So if there was a broadcast that you missed or one that you would like to catch again, you can find those saved on AI's various social media channels, again, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can follow us there to get notified as well of the broadcast we have coming up this afternoon. Now, each interview will be archived at a later date as well on AutoVision News, and you can watch our AutoVision News LinkedIn page. We'll keep you posted when that archive of interviews is finally live. We are going to get caught up with Rick Toole, who is Chief Operating Officer of AI, with his 2022 industry predictions. We were on first thing in the morning, the snowstorm here in Detroit. We got some wires crossed, so we had some technical difficulties. We are going to get caught up with Rick at 12:30 Pacific and then at 3:30 Eastern here on the live stream. Again, you can find that across all of AI social media channels. I'm told from our AI command center that interview, the industry predictions with Rick, may or may not air on LinkedIn, but it'll air on Facebook and Twitter as well as YouTube. And then I'm told that my closing comments for the day may also not air on LinkedIn. So maybe LinkedIn just doesn't care for my closing comments. But either way, some of our all of our programming today will be available on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. So if you don't see it on LinkedIn, don't sweat it. It will be available elsewhere for you. Now, our next guest today, I've been looking forward to talking to Richard Bishop. He's the principal at Bishop Consulting. And when it comes to connected and automated vehicles, his job is to know what's going on and who's doing it, and identify significant and emerging trends. With a global perspective, Richard focuses on partnership development, intelligent vehicle applications, industry trend analysis, and business strategy. His clients include federal government agencies, vehicle manufacturers and suppliers, research laboratories, state DOTs, and technology firms globally. One of his specialties is automated trucking, something we've been talking a great deal about during this webcast series. Richard is the second vice chair of the Automated and Electric Study Group of the American Trucking Association Technology and Maintenance Council, here to talk about the rollout of autonomy in trucking, the importance of Lidar, and so much more. Richard Bishop. Richard, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Carl. I'm really glad to be with you.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you because, from my vantage point here in Detroit, when you said things like ADAS, when you said autonomy, you always thought cars. I mean, the expression is autonomous cars. And even when people say autonomous vehicle, I still think they mean a car. And then suddenly, autonomous trucking has really made the headlines, and heavy trucks have become a great proving ground for this technology. So, in your mind, what has caused this? Why have we made this shift from cars to trucking?
It was bound to bound to happen because business to business, new innovations in a business to business world, you get a lot more traction a lot faster. So in the car side, you're dealing with a retail product, and it can get people excited. There's a lot more news media coverage of that. But the truck aspect was percolating all along as far back as 2012 when Peloton technology was started. And it's been coming. It seems to me, I like to joke that the venture capitalists just sort of woke up at some point and said, oh, wait a minute, trucks make a lot more sense for my money than cars because of all those factors.
Sure, of course. Now, kind of tagging on to that, Richard, some of our other guests have spoken, just with the supply chain crunch and with COVID, that autonomous trucks, like you said, the venture capitalists and people, they understand now the use cases. So what are your thoughts on that? The supply chain crunch, COVID, how does autonomous trucking fit into all of that?
We have a crunch all across the board with trucking. There is a very, very significant driver shortage. It seems like the truck drivers that have been retiring over the last few years, they're not being replaced by younger truckers. The younger
Mhm.
generation doesn't seem as interested in that kind of a job. So there are trucks sitting on lots not moving simply because there's no drivers. The freight's there, the trucks are there, no drivers. So that creates a push. We do see the need for goods to move increasing immensely due to online ordering and delivery,
Right.
and we're seeing that proliferate across. It's not just trucks on highways. That's what you tend to see mainly. It's also trucks on surface streets. Anywhere that freight is flowing, there's a need for and a potential for some autonomy to be applied.
Right. So with that in mind, in your mind, Richard, from your vantage point, what needs to happen, either on the technology side, on the economic side, what needs to happen for autonomous trucking then to really take hold and to really become more mainstream?
Economically, the cost of these systems needs to come down. It is coming down quite quickly, as we've seen in the lidar world. Journalists like to quote the $70,000 lidar 5 years ago, and
Right.
that is not the reality today. These are
Yeah.
very reasonable pricings, particularly for a business type autonomy. The retail customer of a new car cares about price. If you're a trucker, you don't care about price, you care about return on investment. So if you
Hmm.
pay in a few extra thousand for autonomy and you're making that up every day when you carry freight, you're good. So there's that side of it, and then the engineering needs is moving along very, very strongly. There are thousands and thousands of engineers working specifically on getting truck autonomy commercial products to market. There's a lot of technical challenges there, but I think the industry knows how to get where they need to go.
Right. You mentioned lidar, and that has been a huge topic of discussion here across this webcast series, in particular, adaptive lidar. So, from your perspective, Richard, why is lidar important to this autonomous trucking conversation that we're having?
Long range sensing. LiDAR can sense objects quite far ahead of the truck. Trucks take a long time to stop. They
Yes.
need maneuvering in terms of time and space. And so the sooner they can, even something as simple as seeing a disabled car on the side of the road, an autonomous truck for pure, extra safety purposes, wants to change lanes and move away from that disabled vehicle, and that's kind of benign, but it happens frequently. And then there's the more critical safety factors ahead that needs to be detected very far out there, and accurately. That's where lidar comes in.
One to expand on that, Richard. That makes sense. Certainly, from a safety perspective, a larger vehicle like an 18-wheeler taking longer to stop and things like that. One of the other discussions that's come up with lidar is fuel economy. That there are fuel economy benefits for these fleets with lidars. What is your perspective on that, Richard? And how does lidar? I think it's easy to see the safety benefit, but how does lidar help with fuel economy?
It's more of a question for autonomy in general.
Okay.
Um, the driver variability across trucking creates great problems in fuel economy. Even a really well trained, great driver is going to be tired sometimes, be impatient, and they're operating that vehicle in a way that's not as efficient as it could operate. So, multiple truck autonomy developers have seen very strong, up to 10% improvements in fuel economy just by taking that driver variability out of it. And you've got the equivalent of a perfect driver in terms of operating the brakes and throttle, that perfect driver operating for every mile.
Right. So, keeping along with that same sort of mindset, as trucks go on the interstate, but then as they go through cities, we have had a lot of discussions in this series of webcasts about ITS, so intelligent traffic systems, intelligent transportation systems. I'm curious for my own knowledge, Richard, and is there a correlation between autonomous trucking and ITS? So, if ITS systems are operating at their best, does that help the autonomous trucking industry?
It does. The autonomous trucks are designed to run on the roads exactly as they are now, with no help from the infrastructure. That
Mhm.
just has to be the case because you can't really depend on something outside of your system. At the same time, the things can be improved immensely if the vehicles are some of the vehicles, the automated trucks will take a load off of the highway and across the surface streets to get to the warehouse to a digital signal coming from those traffic signals to say, I'm red, green, or yellow. Those kinds of things are important. And also on the highway, there are some improved markings that can be done to simplify things a bit for the technology on the trucks. Even something as simple as the variable message signs that'll tell you about some changing situation. They have a
Sure. Yeah.
refresh rate that may be a problem for cameras, and the Federal Highway Administration at the federal level has actually changed their regulations, their guidance to the states in terms of upgrading those systems so it's more easy to read that message with a camera.
Yeah, and Richard, it is here in Detroit. It's we're under a snow advisory right now. It's snowing as we speak, and so those signs here, as you go through the Michigan and Ohio, you get a lot of those changing signs. So, if I'm understanding you correctly, the autonomous truck, will have the most up to date information on traffic and weather conditions. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, that creates a dependency on the state government, city governments to have good information and put it out there. But another really key point is, and I say this to the government folks all the time, if you've got data that you're pushing out on signs or whatever, great, keep doing that, but put that
Hmm.
data in the cloud because those trucks
Mm.
can download it from the cloud, not
Hmm.
when they can see the sign, but a couple of miles ahead of time. And that's really, really the core. It's about creating good data, reliable data. That's the first thing, and then deliver it through every means you can.
Right. So, in addition to data, Richard, I wanted to pick your brain on this. What else can governments, because this is definitely your area, so what else can governments and municipalities do in addition to data to facilitate the rollout of autonomy, whether it's trucking or traditional cars? What can governments and municipalities do? How can they prepare?
There are several areas. I think on the highway side, for instance, there's a point where even the ADAS systems, as well as the trucking system, can get a little confused at an exit ramp because these
Hmm.
systems are looking for the lane lines just going straight down the road, and suddenly there's a gap
Right.
in the lane line.
Right.
The systems can handle it, but the federal highway new rules say, let's put a dashed line across that gap. Just
Right.
little helpful things like that. But another key area is work zones. You've got a closed lane.
Hmm.
That's the most confusing things for us as drivers sometimes, as well as the vehicles. That's another case, and there's a very active process underway between the developers and the government to come up with a data protocol, a set of data messages to exactly describe one of these work zones in ways that the computers can understand and then maneuver through there effectively and safely.
Right. Richard, we may have covered this in so many words, but now we are 2 years into a pandemic. New variants, and so obviously that's why we're doing this, virtually with CES. But with an ongoing pandemic, I mean, do you see this trend still continuing in trucking? I mean, do you see this we are headed towards an autonomous future in trucking? I mean, that's what I see, but what are your perspectives there? It doesn't seem like any of this is going to change. It's just going to continue to advance.
Yeah, it was advancing before the pandemic. The
Hmm.
pandemic has accentuated the need,
Sure.
um, and and we're seeing that proliferation across the different use cases. Walmart is now using autonomous, excuse me, autonomous trucks to move goods from their distribution center to a retail
Mhm.
store, always
Yes.
just on street, highway. We're seeing yard automation, which the public doesn't really see, but there's a lot of
Mhm.
shuttling of trailers around at distribution centers, not on the public road. There are companies working in that
Yeah.
space.
Right. Richard, in the last few minutes that we have here in this interview, I want to talk about Bishop Consulting. So tell us about what your firm does. Tell us a little bit about Bishop Consulting.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Carl. I don't
Yeah.
mind providing an introduction. I'm a
Yeah.
one-man operation. It's really about perspective and partnership. I've been involved in this space since the 90s. The first time I rode in an automated vehicle was in 1991.
Okay.
We were going 2 miles an hour, but that was the first time. First time I was in a fully automated truck was 1999 on a German highway. It's amazing how the media generally sees this as something that just poof showed up in the
Yes.
last decade. Not the case at all. And many guys like me have devoted their careers to this. It's so that perspective and partnership. I aim to know all the, as you said in the intro, I aim to know who's doing what and really sort out the what's really happening from the hype that's out there.
Mhm.
Sometimes there's questions that proliferate out there about something that really doesn't matter, and
Mhm.
sometimes the right questions aren't being asked. So that's what I do.
Right. Richard, for our viewers on the live stream, how can they get in touch with you at Bishop Consulting? What's the best way for them if they want to hire you and they want to pick your brain? What's the best way for them to contact you?
Well, got a website, richardbishopconsulting.com, and that's I'm Richard at richardbishopconsulting.com. So you can reach me that way, and I'd be pleased to hear from folks and open a conversation.
Richard, thank you for sharing your insights today. We want to wish you all the best of luck going forward. Thank you for being on this CES webcast series with us here at AI.
Thanks, Carl. Enjoyed talking with you.
Yes, likewise. And we will continue the trucking conversation in our next live stream. We're going to be talking with Andrew Nelson. He is AI's VP of Sales for Trucking. That live cast will happen at 9:30 Pacific and at 12:30 Eastern. So in about 10 to 12 minutes from now, you can catch that live stream across all of AI's social media channels, which includes Facebook and Twitter, as well as LinkedIn and YouTube. I'm told from our AI command center that there might be some technical difficulties with LinkedIn. So if any of the things that we're talking about today, if they don't show up on LinkedIn, you can find them across other AI social media channels. And then everything you're seeing today will be archived at a later date on AutoVision News as well. We'll catch you in the next live stream with Andrew Nelson, VP of Sales for Trucking, 9:30 Pacific, 12:30 Eastern. You're watching the Live with AI virtual